The Dresden Files. Peace Talks is Jim Butcher's latest entry in this series that fans have been clamoring for years, as he has kind of had this series in stasis, but now we are coming back in. And in this review, I want to address a couple things. Is it worth the wait? Is Peace Talks as monumental as Jim has been hinting at it being? And what are just my overall thoughts? One, just getting this out of the way kind of the beginning. It's worth the wait. As over the last 3 days, I've read Briefcase, Side Jobs, and then this. Yeah, I'm very happy with how Peace Talks is kind of melding right into there. And strangely enough, and this is going to be cryptic enough to probably entice some fans here, definitely maybe refresh yourself on a couple of things from those short stories before this. I was very fortunate to have read those so quickly, so right beforehand for this. That wasn't planned out. I didn't know that would pay off well, and this is vague enough for me to say it. It's not a spoiler because you don't know what I'm talking about in all of these short stories, but there's relevant things there for here, and if you haven't read them, you might have a couple moments of like, okay. So yeah, those are important. Read them from the Dresden Files. Just gonna throw that out and we're done with that now. Walking this world, ours with supernatural with Dresden once again is oh so satisfying, and I was ecstatic to be here again. Jim, after all these years, is still on top of his craft. The characters are as witty, Dresden's personality is as strong. There's nothing here that's going to just on face value feel wrong for fans returning to this series. I was not disappointed in that front in any way, shape, or form. So yes, in terms of is it worth the wait? Absolutely. But did Jim overpromise when he talked about being the next bigger than changes event for this series? No, not at all. And again, this is spoiler-free review, but reading Peace Talks, obviously it's a lot of setup for Battleground because we're going to have this 1-2 punch that we've been promised. That's what's been said. This is originally going to be one huge book, but Jim Butcher apparently has split it into 2, so breaking the typical Dresden Files formula of having one story that kind of builds on a lot of the mythology built for previous ones. We're getting like half a complete arc, and it's just setting up what seems to be, I'm predicting after finishing Peace Talks, the largest event Dresden's universe is probably going to ever have to face in this next entry. It's kind of like almost a meme within the Dresden Files community at this point to be like, bigger than changes, really? Like, I don't think you can be, because changes within the Dresden Files was massive. Like, that was huge and foundation shaking for the direction or even how this series felt to read. Peace Talks, it's not even the full story yet, but I can tell you it's hitting more. There's a reason the covers look like this and this, which are so dramatic compared to your typical like Dresden in an alley cover. Or whipping out a revolver in front of a bank safe. That's a cool cover there. Getting into, as vague as I can, the setup here to not spoil anything. Reading this book felt like Dresden's holding a plate, getting ready for the normal meal that's put on it. That's the overall, like, okay, let's get into the story. This is the meat. And instead of just getting that one meal, all of a sudden he has like 5 courses just dumped on that plate. And Dresden literally is at one point just like, I can't, no. It's like 5 heapings of the amount of crap Dresden has to deal with just coming together simultaneously. And it even gets to the point where with one of them, Dresden's just like, I'm going to do what I can to put this on hold because I can't actually address this at all with everything else that's piling on right now. It's that point where our guy Dresden, who wants to take on the world at every turn, is now even going like, nope, can't even address this. Gonna put it on hold. And for those of you who finish Peace Talks, you know exactly what I'm talking about, how it just goes, that's on hold, I'll address it later, other problems now. Getting into a bit of the plot stuff here because either Jim has talked about it publicly or it's in the book trailer or hell, the title of the book gives it away. There are peace talks happening and Dresden has been called in to serve as security. There's also some things going down with his brother that he has to handle. And as these events unravel, we also get to watch Dresden with his new position, or not quite so new at this point, but his position the Winter Knight, address people that he hasn't had to directly address in quite some time, like the Council. And we really have a nice laying out of how these positions, how the status has evolved here. That was one of the best angles for Peace Talks in this sense for the book. I will say plot-wise though as well, there's quite a bit of time taken to re-explore things that Dresden Files fans are aware of. Now these things are re-explored because I'm assuming it's either been a while, so Jim was afraid that some people have forgotten quite a bit, or just potentially for people who are for some reason picking this one up without reading Dresden Files, but I don't think those people will exist. And those moments where this story, which is already so cram-packed with so many things going down, felt the need to take the time to go down those roads that we know that was not my favorite. It's just we have so little time to spare. Every page that's taken explaining something to us, the fans, that we've been explained many times before in Dresden Files feels like a waste. And Peace Talk seems to trying to be having a lot of the consequences for what Dresden has been dealing with for so long finally come home and play, while simultaneously having their other events going on in the universe that are kind of firing off. And we as the readers, are being led to believe, at least this is how I interpret it, that those are not separate. There are things at play doing these things simultaneously to screw with Dresden and mess him up so that he cannot manage it all at once. At least that's what it felt like for me going through this. Unfortunately, because this is day of release review and it's a part 1 without even like payoff of the story, I can't get in much more there. That's just all I have to say. And from here, I'm going to transition the review to just my overall like actual ratings review type, because I don't want to say anything more because I know how upset I'd be if I had anything with Peace Talk spoiled for me. So when Battleground does come out, I'm probably going to do a full spoiler-filled review of both Peace Talks and Battleground together to actually talk about the full arc that's occurring here, because this is definitely part 1 to a 2-parter. At least I hope 2-parter. I don't know if this will continue into the rest of the Dresden books. It seems like it might have the potential to. Yeah. This is big. All right, so that's the story, though, at least as much as we can talk about it. Let's talk about the actual review. How did I feel about the characters, pacing, plot, magic, all these things going on? Well, with magic, it's Dresden. It's awesome. Not even going to address that totally. And I will say, without, any specifics, there are some wizard-on-wizard action here that I really liked, and that's always a really interesting dynamic to Dresden Files, is when we have proficient magic users just whipping out their arsenals and being as creative as they can. Nice. And when it comes to character for Peace Talks, Dresden really is kind of like pulling out from every angle here. And that's actually kind of a continual theme in this book. Everything that we have come to expect in the Dresden Files as a whole plays a part here in some way. And that includes with like what's going on with characters. There's not a whole lot of development, but we're getting that interesting family dynamic that's slowly been building. We're getting the politics between the characters. We're getting the love angles fleshed out a little more. It's not like there's a whole lot of development except for one particular relationship, which is finally having some really substantial payoff. But in general, it's more of just like, here is so many things coming together, and we're getting to see all these meldings and mushings that I was very satisfied by. There's a lot of, there's in the book trailer that everyone's sitting at a table and it kind of looks like the Last Supper, even though they're vertically down it, not horizontally. There's that, and then well beyond. It's just really providing depth and callbacks continuously, not callbacks in a cheap way, just kind of like the payoff for things that have happened before to finally be coming together. Now, one strange angle to all of that, though, there was something about what happened here in Peace Talks that somehow shrank the Dresden world for me a little bit, and that's not in a good way. For some reason, like I've always kind of just shrugged off on the how many important things are happening right here, right now, or in this one city around this one guy, because, it's whatever. It has you just assume other big things are happening in other places and they're being dealt with, which were shown repeatedly throughout the Dresden Files. But to me, having so much pile on together at one point, once again, all just so crucial to this moment, this time with Dresden being central to it, just felt a little somehow contained or gravitational, where for me to really be okay with it, I need some kind of payoff as to why that's more direct than anything we've gotten before to happen in one of the next few books, because it just felt a little too gravitational to this point. I get that we've been given droplets and hints of how Dresden is special and how there's things there, but that shouldn't play necessarily the biggest factor in some angles of what's going on. Man, I hate being this vague. Spoilers a little bit at the end here. We'll do like a minute of spoilers. But for me, that was just, I don't know, I want some more justification. Pacing for Peace Talks as well is a little bit more just scene than I would like it. There's just a lot of jump, which is kind of not the natural momentum I would expect from a story like this. Not horrifically, not in a horrible, like negative sense, though I have a suspicion that will be much less of a problem in the follow-up and the conclusion to what's going on here. Again, assuming this is a 1-2-parter, not a 1-2-3 or a 1-2-3-4. And then generally most everything else for this review is going to fall into typical Dresden. The prose are fine. The characters are witty and funny. You'll laugh out loud. The stakes are definitely realized in there. The sexual elements to Dresden are as well as strong as they've ever been. That winter night factor at play is getting more and more extreme, harder and harder to deal with. Overall, though, I'm positive on it. And it's just hard to put a number rating here because this is a beginning. It didn't feel like a finish in any way, shape, or form, but I'm going to go ahead and give Peace Talks, for me, a very solid 7.5, with a caveat that there's a lot of wiggle room for that, depending on how well specifically this next book comes into play, because with Jim specifically saying this was originally one book, I'm kind of like fluctuating on this review depending on how well that one does, because I'm still viewing this as one story, and I'm kind of trying to make sure I keep it that way in my head. So this could be bumped all the way up to an 8.5 or torn some way down. I don't know. It's really hard to put a solid rating on there, and I don't want to go too high, because I haven't been given the payoff for a lot of this yet, and I don't want to go too low because I still did really genuinely enjoy it, and I had a good time with Peace Talks. But let me know what you think of it in the comments down below, if you've picked up Peace Talks as well, and like and subscribe if you have not already. Hit the Patreon if you want to support what I do here, and subscribe if you want to stick around for that a couple months from now. Spoiler-filled Peace Talks and Battleground video. That being said, though, I'm going to go ahead and talk a little bit about spoilers for Peace Talks right now. So if you want to go ahead and bounce out of here for that, get on out of here, because we're going to have some Peace Talk spoilers. I'm not going to go super in depth here because I'm going to have another video about the spoilers, but I'd like to get at my thoughts on a couple things that happened here in this book before I have any kind of payoff for them, just to show how I'm directly feeling about them. First and foremost, we are having the Outsiders become more directly a threat than ever before. Well, there's this new god in town who makes Mab look like a speck of dust with her power. Dresden has to worry about this, while also his brother is somehow involved in this assassination attempt that seems completely out of character, and we don't know why he'd do it, and he's in such horrendous shape he could die, and Dresden has to quite literally put him on hold, just throw him in the prison and be like, I can't deal with this right now, prison, I don't know, your island prison, you're gonna be in hell, because there's nothing better I can do, so put that on hold. We got more on the plate to deal with. So we have Dresden dealing with an apocalypse level scenario, as this person wants to put mortals in their place who's more powerful than like anyone Dresden's had to directly deal with before. We have the White Council being like, why are you so tight with this White Court vampire, specifically his granddad? And Dresden has to be like, well, because he's also your grandson. As well as the White Council being like, we think you might be a traitor and we want to do all kinds of stuff to make sure that you have no more power and punish you for just because we hate you in general things going on. And that brother is now in critical condition after pulling like an Archduke Ferdinand move, or at least attempting to. So yeah, it's a lot on your plate, man. We have Marcone really showing up here strong, and I was really intense in that scene where we had so many powerful beings at play, and Marcone holds his own. Good on you, Marcone. I know I shouldn't be happy Marcone is doing well. He's Marcone, like he's awful, but I was weirdly proud of my guy. I was proud to see Marcone step up and be like, we are going to respect my house here, a guest here, to someone who is powerful enough to make Mab look like a flick. The only element here that I was the most, does this need to be a thing right now, is the Thomas storyline. But depending on how these things go, I could totally be okay with it. It just, to me right now, feels the most out of place, though we're obviously going to see how it's supposed to slide into play unless there's some grievous mishandling. So yeah, that one, I want to know where it's going to go. I'm curious for that mystery as well as the other many layers of mystery going on here. And my predictions for Battleground, oh man, I think we're actually going to have to see real ramifications here. I think it's time, obviously we've had ramifications to Dresden Files before. Changes. For me, this is the time where it's like, this isn't just going to be ramifications for Dresden and the people close to him and, getting rid of the Red Court stuff. This is going to be the Earth won't be the same type stuff. And I also think that's why the title of the next book is what it is, because we as the reader are going to have to expect everyone coming together to fight this thing. And it's why I think they're trying so desperately to disrupt this treaty, because what's about to go down doesn't want these good forces allied in any form of way where they could have presented a substantial front. And now they could still do that, partially because of how much Marcone stood up. So, I don't know. I'm down. I'm very down. I'm excited. Peace Talks. Let's see where it goes from here.